Boy, oh boy, I just got out of watching Jurassic World Rebirth, and man, do I have a lot to talk about. Now, before we dive in, I want to make this very clear. This will contain spoilers, so if you've not seen the movie, feel free to click off, watch it later, go watch the movie, don't watch the movie, up to you. And secondly, what are your thoughts on the movie? Good, positive, negative, bad, whatever you want. Feel free to drop that in the comments. I'll be reading all the comments and probably responding to all of them. So feel free to write essays. I'm totally okay with that. I love reading, so it's all good. It's all good. But the movie itself, overall, I'll get this out of the way. I think, honestly, it might be this might be a hot take because I've seen some polarizing opinions on the internet already. I think it might be the worst Jurassic Park/World movie. Worse than 3, worse than 2, worse than Dominion, worse than the most recent Jurassic World. I just don't think it was that good. And it all boils down to one thing. It was, in a sense, kind of boring. And I hate to say that about Jurassic movies because I love dinosaurs. I love Jurassic, characters, the dinos, everything. And it just broke my heart sitting in the movie theater watching this movie. Does it have its moments? Of course it does, but the moments almost don't make up for entirely. They don't actually make up for the shortcomings of the film. And this really ties to, I know the beginning with the Snickers bar is a hot topic for debate. Honestly, I have like mixed feelings about it. Some people might think it's stupid. You could look at it like, oh, life finds a way kind of thing, where there's, a freak accident, dinosaurs get loose, life expands. They do what they need to do. But the intro sequence actually set a pretty good tone for the movie. I thought initially, like, oh, this is going to be, kind of like not a horror movie, but like, the monster movie is back. A big thing I had issues with the new Jurassic World movies is there's clear villain dinosaurs and hero dinosaurs. I'm not the biggest fan of that. And sure, you could say, oh, herbivores can be hero dinosaurs because they don't eat people. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about the dinos that fight the bad dinos. And then look at all the main human characters and just walk away. I'm looking at you and the Jurassic World. I love Jurassic World 1. I really love that movie. It might be my second favorite Jurassic movie, actually. And the ending, the fight was awesome. I'm not gonna lie, the fight was awesome, but the hero dino trope, I don't know why it's become a thing made to sell merch. I don't like it. I do not like it. But continue on, that's a whole nother discussion for another video. We have the Snickers incident. The D-Rex gets shown. He or she, I'm not sure which it is, has these long, like, creepy looking hands that it reaches across and grabs the scientist and just chomps him, rips him apart. Awesome. And then we cut to the humans, and you have your typical Jurassic billionaire, probably trillionaire. This man's talking, bajillions of dollars, and it stop in traffic. A giant, I guess a Bronchiosaurus, I think it is. It's some variation of that, is dying on the streets, and he goes out, check it out, and then comes back, and that's when we're introduced to Scarlett Johansson's character, Dora Bennett, who is like the best mercenary, I guess, the world has to offer, according to our rich billionaire friend, which I just find odd. There's just no way. There's just no way. And she makes it a point to say that her last job, she lost someone, it affected her deeply. And this is important. This is important for me personally to note, because later in the movie, I feel like events unfold that don't make sense to her character. And that might just, obviously it's my opinion, but I'm curious what you guys will think. But the first 40 or so minutes, I think it was like 40 or so minutes, that's what it felt like. It was a slog. Oh man, just gathering the crew up, meeting the scientist who, he mentioned he worked under Dr. Alan Grant. That's cool. Little Easter egg there. Typical, like, potential love interest, nerdy scientist guy that, Scarlett Johansson's character clearly is looking at him like, oh, he's, this pathetic weakling that I had to protect. But he's also super charming and super smart and cares about dinosaurs and yada, yada, yada. Cool, whatever. Not a big deal. And then they go and start recruiting the crew. And you meet Duncan, who is the captain of the ship. Cool guy. But kind of like your typical merc. Nothing really stood out for me. And then you meet the rest of the crew. And it's kind of like, to me, I mean, they all have names, but it's kind of like Merc 1, Merc 2, Merc 3. You could tell some of the characters are there just to be killed off later in the film, because they don't get any sort of real, like, meaningful screen time. Like, for example, the chick, I cannot remember her name. She had short hair. She talks a few sentences, but that's about it. Nothing really crazy. But they all agree on the price. Yada yada. They start to go out, and this is where we get our first, like, dino scene, finally, past the intro. We see a family on a sailboat, and you meet this family, and you have the father, $2, and the oldest daughter's complete douchebag boyfriend, who, I don't know if I'm just getting older, but oh man, I would just throw him overboard. I think his name was like Paul or something. I would just toss him. So disrespectful, man. And I'm definitely getting older, I guess, but absolutely ridiculous. Just disrespectful to the dad. And all of a sudden, just sailing, and then you see sails in the distance. And you're like, oh, what's that? Oh, something's about to happen. Finally, after 45 minutes, some action. So it cuts to that. It's Spinosaurus teamed up with the Mosasaurus to take out this boat. They came to a conclusion that they're like, oh, we hope it's not the Mosasaurus. And of course, it's the Mosasaurus. So they take out the boat and just flip it over and kind of like leave them stranded on the boat, which I found odd, because I guess the Mosasaurus nose can identify boats, and if they're flipped over, they're like out of commission. Because usually I was expecting the Mosasaurus to do its little like whale breach where it pops out and like slams on it to maybe break the boat in half, but they kind of just took out the boat. The Spinosauruses went away, the Mosasaur just went away and left his family stranded. They happen to have a radio. They put out a mayday, and we go back to our main crew, who then pick up the mayday, have a little bicker like, oh, we need to go save them. And the rich guy's like, no, we have a charter to this island, we need to go there, it's my charter. And Duncan, oh, it's my boat, kind of thing. Just a little banter here and there, not a problem. So they go pick up the family, and I don't know about you, but the family is one of my least favorite parts of this movie. I don't like them. I really don't. And it might be a hot take. I just think they're so annoying. I really do. They're so annoying. Like, you just got saved, and they're so adamant about, I mean, I guess, you want to get out of there, but like, you got saved at the cost of someone else's time. Like, let them do what they're doing. Don't be a whiny little, I don't want to cuss and get demonetized, but you know what I'm saying. Don't complain. That's just me though. Some people love the family, some people hate them. I'm just not the biggest fan. But to kind of skip across, they crash the boat. They get attacked by the Spinos and Mosasaurs. We get our first kill, and it's one of the mercs who is distracted, gets chomped by a Spinosaurus. Pretty cool kill. The Spinos are very aquatic in this movie, which I'm a fan of. And then they crash onto this beach. They have all their gear, and it's important to note the family at this point has jumped off the boat, and they kind of just like swam away. They swam off somewhere else on the island as the boat was starting to crash. Important to note. But the Spino gets another kill. It's other merc girl with short hair. She's trying to push obviously way too heavy of like equipment. It's like 20 looking suitcases or boxes and it's almost an off-screen kill because she goes behind the boxes, and then you see the Spino in the corner kind of like slither off into the water, and then just grab her, and then you see a bunch of blood, but you don't see the kill itself. I was trying to maybe save on some effects, I don't know, but there's not that many kills in the movie, so with that, it's a little disappointing not to see that. But we go forward, and something that always got me throughout the movie was the main characters and the families, or just characters in general, kept meeting up with each other at the perfect times. So the whole thing is there's pipes of, I think it's geothermal heating or electricity, and if you follow them, you get to the village. That's where they're told to go. And what are the odds they perfectly follow the pipes and didn't go the opposite direction? The island looks huge, so that was always a weird thing, that the characters could easily just meet up and then have their little squabble and then depart each other on this massive island. Absolutely massive island. But the whole goal of the movie is they need to collect this dino blood. There's 3 samples. They grab the mosasaurus sample at the beginning. I forgot to mention that earlier. Kind of some cool scenes. Nothing like, spectacular, but cool scenes. You get to see Scarlett Johansson shoot the mosasaurus and get the blood, and it shoots off into the sky and perfectly lands where they need to be to catch it. And then they need to get I think it's a titanosaur, massive. And this scene was great. Gave me very Jurassic Park 1 vibes. And my only complaint is the grass they're in looked like maybe 3, maybe 4 foot tall. And they're in this giant valley. They don't see anything. And all of a sudden they hear almost like whale calls, and boom, erupts. These giant, Goliaths just stand up from, I guess, laying in the grass or sleeping, and there's just no way. How they not see them? But we see the scene. It's really good, really good. Enjoyed that scene a lot. And we kind of go back to the family, and we have, which I was so excited for this because this is from the book. And if you haven't read the Jurassic Park books, highly suggest them. The first one is such a good read. I'm actually thinking about reading it again because it was so good. But we get the raft scene. So the family arrives at this little dock, and the oldest daughter notices a raft, or a boat rather, inside the shed. She starts to walk over, and there's a T-Rex just snoozing. She gets all tensed up, freaked out. The family's like trying to wave her back to come back, and those figure it out. But you can't yell. You're gonna wake up the T-Rex. So she goes inside, notices the boat. It's just out of commission, but she sees a box with the rafting, so she very loudly drags it out onto the dock, and pulls the switch or the lever, and explodes open, super loud. The T-Rex, you can see, starts to wake up, and then the raft kind of covers the screen, and the T-Rex is gone. I don't know how it did it. It vanished. So they get the raft in the water. Also note the dad at this point has, I think it's like a sprained ankle, or his leg. He's walking with a walking stick and a limp. It's important to note for later. But he's injured. They get on the raft, and then they see the T-Rex is drinking water. He just woke up. They're trying to quietly paddle away. T-Rex ain't having that. So this was a really good scene. They did justice. They're trying to get away from the T-Rex, and the T-Rex is giving chase. Very. This is what we want to see in a Jurassic movie. We want to see big scary dinosaur chase little scared people. That's what I want in a movie. And they start to make their escape. The three of the family members are able to kind of slip through these rocks, and then the daughter, the youngest daughter, she's stuck under the raft. The raft at this point is flipped over, and the T-Rex is biting the raft. and it's not popping, it's not deflating, nothing. So I don't know what was wrong there. I don't know if that was like a missed thing in production, like, hey, by the way, the T-Rex should be able to pop a raft. But interesting scene in that part. The T-Rex is destroying the raft, just bite chomping on it, and it's fine. It's fine. But that, maybe he didn't sharpen his teeth that day. I don't know. But there's a really tense scene where they're behind these rocks. The youngest daughter finally gets through, and the T-Rex puts his head through a rock, roars at him, blah, blah, blah. And then it cuts back to Scarlett Johansson's character, and her and the scientist dude, the love interest of the movie, start chatting it up. He's like, hey, we get this blood, give it to this rich guy for the cure. He's just gonna, I guess, monopolize it, right? Only his company will have access to it, and then only like a small percentage of people can get it. Keep in mind, throughout the movie, Scarlett Johansson's character, she says this is her final job. She was so deeply affected by the death of her friend on the last job that even on the boat on the way to the island, she's like sitting there at night crying, just torn apart about it. At this point, 2 of her friends have already been killed by Spinosauruses. So she lost 2 people. And I just don't get how she did this job for all the money, and then she's gonna let this dude somehow convince her, hey, we need to go public with this, give it to everyone. We won't make any money, but that's what we need to do. And all of a sudden, she like has this heart of gold, like she's some mercenary, right? Supposed to be, cut edge, lethal, right? And then she has a heart of gold, and that just kind of, it was weird. It was weird. At this point, the sacrifices have been made. Finish the job, get your money, retire, sail off into the sunset. You don't want to do something like this again. So that was weird, and it's just so typical with movies nowadays. And I might just, you could just say I'm just complaining to complain. Fair enough, totally fair. But I wasn't a big fan of that. But the cliff scene, which is they need to get blood from a Quetzalcoatlus, I probably said that wrong, giant, like F-16 sized dino with wings. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll probably have a picture up on the screen. It was really good. They rappel down, and then there's like these ancient ruins in the side of the cliff that you can only access either climbing or rappelling down. So I don't know how those ancient ruins got there. It's never explained, but they try to get where they actually do extract some DNA from like one of the eggs. The father, the mom, whatever, shows up, starts pecking at them, and then one of the other mercs, who is still rappelling down, plays hero. He throws like something at it and like smacks in the back of the head, and I just, the Quetzalcoatlus, like I said, if I'm saying it wrong, apologies, has food in front of it. It's not going to get hit by something that is, I don't know, probably like 10, 15 away. Ignore the 2 snacks in front of it and go after, like, no. So that felt very like Looney Toony to me, and like kind of like plot armor to protect the scientist and Scarlett Johansson. So it goes out there, starts going after him, and then the guy's rope gets like caught. He starts to fall down. The scientist's rope starts to fall down. Scarlett Johansson character is like holding him, and then eventually the rope snaps. And this is a huge drop. He falls perfectly onto these giant palm tree leaves. Boom, 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 soft as a feather, and lands in a puddle just deep enough that no damage is done. And the sample shot off with its little parachute and landed right next to him flawlessly. And back up top the cliff, the rich dude and Duncan are trying to pull up their friend, this other merc, and we get a pretty crazy scene where he gets eaten pretty much alive and swallowed whole. That was, I was like, damn, like, okay, this is cool. Maybe the movie's starting to turn up a little bit. Let's go. This is awesome. kind of crazy. But jumping way ahead, we'll get to the final act, and we have the Mutodons, which are these raptor mutant hybrid dinos. They're pretty creepy looking, and they remind me of the Tremor monsters, not the worms in the sand, but the ones that kind of like walk around the surface. They kind of look like them. I could just be, you know, it's late bugging, who knows. But it was a really great scene. They're in the village at this point. All the characters meet up. You know, the family's pissed at rich dude for one bringing him to the island, and you know, he tried to let their $1 die because she tried to call for help. Forgot to mention that. Sorry about that. Like I said, I'm no script, by the way. We're just doing this off the dome. So, and like I said, it's late, so forgive me. But they have a whole kind of like raptor-esque scene where the Mutodons show up and the village is all lit up. And we get some really cool scenes of the family in this convenience store where the Mutodon is just stalking them throughout the store. We have Scarlett Johansson and rich billionaire guy around this like electric Jeep station thing. And you know, that was a cool scene. Big thing to note. Rich guy finds a gun at some point in the movie from like this pilot that was strung up in the tree. And you know, if you've gone shooting before or have ever owned a gun, you have to maintain it. You have to clean it, you know, all that good stuff. Based on decomposition of the body, that pilot body has been there for quite some time. You factor in heat, rain, you know, the humidity, the weather, all that stuff, you know, probably bugs going inside of it. That gun should not be functioning the way it was. This gun, this pistol, they were shooting it. One, it seemed like it had infinite ammo. They were just letting it rip. And the rich guy, just terrible aim. Awful aim. Misses the Mutodon completely. And he actually gets in this Jeep that's been just chilling there and drives off. Because they discover, oh, we need to go to the docks. That, you know, we need to escape. Scarlett Johansson's character is like, oh, we have a helicopter coming. That's why they went to the village. And the Mutodon scene is still going. The family in the convenience store slips into the tunnels. And the Mutodon kind of sees where they're going. Like, sees their fingers. In the tunnels, I called it. The dad is crouch walking. No problem. No problem. Like, imagine Halo. You're crouch walking. That's what it looked like. He's crouch walking with speed. All, you know, he's healed. It's a miracle. He's healed. Let's go. But the helicopter begins to arrive. It does like its first pass. And all of a sudden we start to hear the D-Rex finally. End of the movie, finally. After it seemed like 2+ hours, it seemed like. Finally we get to see the D-Rex in its full. And this was a crazy scene. So the helicopter, you can see it. They notice the people down there. It's coming closer, but as it's coming closer, it's already in the hands of the D-Rex. And it's just chewing the helicopter up and, you know, throws it, explodes. Great scene. I was very happy about that. You know, so that was a great thing. That was a super great thing. Big fan of that. So, you know, they escape the tunnels, escape the Mutodons, and of course, in Jurassic fashion, the rich billionaire guy gets grabbed by the D-Rex, crunched, torn into pieces, and they get the samples because, of course, Scarlett Johansson and scientist love interest want to save the world now. They don't want the money. They don't care about the money. They don't care that they're gonna have to do jobs or work again, or, you know, all my friends just die for, I guess, this cause. But I just wish these movies sometimes would let the people be selfish. Show some real humanity, right? In the sense that, kind of like, you know, like The Boys, if you ever watched that, the superheroes aren't all good. Some of them act like Goombas, right? So I was kind of hoping for something like that, but of course, you know, always has to have a good ending. And with the helicopter destroyed, they're like, we need to get to the docks. There's a boat we can use to escape. They start to make their way to the docks. They get there, and the D-Rex shows up. Duncan pops open a flare at this point, and he goes off to lead the D-Rex away. You know, Zora Bennett, Scarlett's character, all upset. You know, this is one of her, I would assume, best friend on her crew. Goes off. You see him, run to the woods. D-Rex is chasing him. You see his flare, and you see his flare go out. So in my mind, I'm like, wow, that's great sacrifice. Great way to wrap up the movie. Scarlett goes to his island, loses everyone pretty much. Loses everyone. Even her best friend Duncan. The flare vanishes. Great scene. They get on the boat. They start going. All of a sudden, Duncan appears. Somehow. And to me, the whole oh man, the way of the sacrifice and everything just sucked away. And it really did hurt. It hurt to see that, because man, it's some characters in these movies are so invincible, and I just wish they would show at least how did he get away. It just makes no sense. It makes no sense at all. But that's pretty much the movie. The movie, then they get on the boat, happy ending, the family's with them. Garland, the scientists, are gonna save the world with these samples, cure heart disease, give it to everyone, yada yada yada. Credits. Honestly, 5 out of 10, maybe like a 4.8 out of 10. It was a slow start. The dinosaurs look good, but the characters, you just don't care about these characters as much as some previous movies. And the D-Rex not being, especially since it was kind of like marketed as the next like Indominus Rex or Indoraptor, and then only showing up at the very, very end, I was hoping the D-Rex would be tormenting the island or stalking them throughout the entire couple days in the island, but it didn't. Is what it is. Like I said, I think this might be the weakest entry in the Jurassic franchise. I don't really know where they go from this. I don't know if they're just going to do one-off stories at this point. They might. But yeah, that is my review. I know it was wasn't super formal, it was a little all over the place. If you're here still, hi. I appreciate you guys watching to the end. And like I said, feel free to drop your reviews in the comments. I'll read them all, and we might do a follow-up video. But if we enjoy these movie reviews, I'll probably make them a bit more formal and scripted out, and we can maybe start doing this. But hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.